Hey, what's up, guys? So I had a couple questions on how I'm going about my programming and what that looks like. So one of the things that I really stay with, regardless if I'm doing hypertrophy, more time under tension, strength, or power, is always following the rules of progressive overloading. So progressive overloading for me has been a huge benefit ever since I really learned what it was and how to implement it effectively. So in my time in the bodybuilding world or in the powerlifting world, progressive overloading can be adapted to your own goals. So what I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna put down a kind of a chart. So when it looks at the overall scheme of a plan, you want to be able to look at weeks in advance or by the reps. So having a notebook, providing yourself with some form of I guess logging, whether that's through video recording, whether that is through an Excel spreadsheet. A lot of mine logging is through a notebook and an Excel spreadsheet, so that way I can graph it. But I'm only graphing my last lift of that week. So what we're going to look at is one, progressive overloading. Okay. So when we're looking at progressive overloading, we have to think about the word progress because that's what essentially what we're doing. No matter what our goals are, whether that's to lose weight, whether that is to be strong, be ripped, gain muscle, run faster, run longer. We always want to reach progress or be able to obtain progress each and every time. So what progressive overloading does is it occurs or recreates a constant adaptation. Your body's constantly having to adapt if it's done correctly. So if I'm looking at week one, and say for example, a goal for mine is to be able to incline press, or I'm sorry, incline bench press, more specific, 130. So I want to be able to get 130 8 times for maybe one set, or maybe numerous sets for a little bit of a longer goal. So week one, right now, and these are going to be real numbers. I'm doing 120 by 120, 120. Okay. So this was just week one of this past week. So it took me a little bit to get to 120. So granted, just because I'm able to hit 120 for my completed reps, so you want to be able to complete your reps in this case. You don't want to leave any reps behind because if you do that across the board, the next thing you know, you've literally missed an entire workout because that one rep, that's two reps, and so forth add up. They add up fairly quickly. Um, and so when we go here for week one, we're looking at 120 for the first set, 120 for the second set, and 120 for the second set. I'm sorry, for the third set. So what we're doing is week one, we have completed all our sets. So week two, granted, we've warmed up, we feel good, we've had food intake, but those are other variables that that take part in your lifting as well, the way you sleep. But right now, we're just going to focus on progressive overload. All these other variables we don't really necessarily have to talk about as of right now. So when it comes to progressive overloading, we're going to go 120 again, 120 again, and this is where the adaptation occurs. So we're able to hit 120s for completed reps. Now we're going to challenge ourselves on that very last set, and we're going to push the 130. Granted that we only get, let's say the goal is 8 reps. The goal is 8 reps, and we only get 5. We now have 3 reps remaining. Okay, so 3 reps remaining. Do the math on that. What we're doing is we're missing the volume. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go drop back down. We're going to drop back down to 120. We're not just going to do 3 reps. We'll end up doing +2. And in my head, if you think about the stress that we're causing, 130 is going to take a lot out of you. It's not necessarily the volume, but the muscle recruitment that we're asking. We're asking our bodies to work a little bit harder to generate force to be able to perform this lift. So 130. So we're going to go back here. So always drop the weight, 3 reps plus 2, because we've now dropped back down to 120. So week 3. So when we go to week 3, what we're looking at is 120, 120, and then we've already noted that we have 3 reps plus 2. So we're going to try this 130 again. And say for this third week, right? So for this third week, we complete it. We get all 8 reps. We feel good. And then week 4, we start the process all over. So by week 5, we all have 130. But the goal was just to be able to rep 130 for 8. And so we're still progressing that. So it took us a little bit of time to get there, especially with the other variables we have to consider. So big rule of thumb is making sure you're tracking your progress, because if you're not tracking it, then you're not necessarily going to know where you need to go for the next week. Also, seeking help if you need help. If you need help looking at a plan or laying out a plan, depending on what your specific goals are, ask for help. But just make sure that that help is reliable and they know what they're talking about. Especially any time that you have someone take control of your health or your physical well-being into implementing your goals. And so lastly, making sure that we are dropping the egos. Drop the ego. If you know that you don't, that you can't get that certain weight for your goal rep range or your overall goal, drop the ego and make sure that you're doing it the way you need to. Because at the end of the day, you're only cheating yourself. And for the end of this video, progress is where we're going. Progressive overloading is essentially adding a new adaptation each and every week on our last set. It could be other time and retention. It could be a weight. It could be pauses. Whatever it may be. It could be just strict body weight. You don't necessarily have to do weighted stuff. So as long as you're creating a stress or a new stressor for your body to be able to force, you're going to avoid those plateaus, or you're going to be able to grow and reach those goals. See you guys later.